Welcome to the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor podcast, Laughbox. We have multiple hosts and multiple guests and multiple ways to think out of the box using humor.
Laughbox is a production of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Visit us online at www.aath.org. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Music by Gary Rubio. For more information, www.garyrubiomusic.com.
Join us for episode 120 with Jim Bob Williams, Katie B, and special guest, comedian turned author, Mike Lukas. Yay!
Welcome to Laughbox, the official podcast of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. I'm Jim Bob Williams.
And I'm Katie B.
And today our very special guest is Mike Lukas. He's a comedian. He's an author. He's absolutely amazing.
Just ask him. He'll tell you.
Okay.
Can I have that standing ovation on?
Yes, you can. Whoa! You've had the angels calling on high, too.
I'll take a guardian angel. I'll take any kind of angel that's looking over my shoulder and's got my back.
Okay, so Mike, someday you'll have to autograph my copy of your book. Unfortunately, I got the electronic version.
I'll type my name out and just hit send.
But here's some things that got me excited when I started reading Fine Tuning Your Funny Muscle.
Oh, are you in book 2? You got book 2?
Yeah, I got both books. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Boy,
Yeah.
Jim Bob, I like you already.
Hey, I'm always trying to do something to improve my stand-up. Somebody's got to do it. But
Absolutely.
describe your comic lens.
That's a great concept. One of the things that I discovered as a comedian, I did comedy for 24 years. I started out in 1990. Back in last century, I was doing comedy. And that was a wonderful career. I was a computer programmer with a corporate job. And I was holding court at my cubicle and to the point where my boss called me in and he said, Mike, you're doing your job well. It's just that you're not allowing others to do their job well because there's always a group of people and their heads are always laughing around your cubicle as you're working. So you might be getting your stuff done, but they're not. And then he asked me the question that always rang true in my head, which was, why are you here? And I had no answer for him. So what I ended up doing was I ended up auditioning for Disney MGM Studios. My mom cut out a little article that said, we're looking for comedic actors and to open up our brand new MGM studios in Orlando, Florida. So that you can tell how long ago this was. And so I was taking an acting class in Cincinnati at the time because I was searching. And then I found out that they wanted a minute audition. And so my acting coach and I said, okay, what can I do that's funny, but it takes a minute? And I was like, an elevator ride. So I ended up writing a little bit that was, and I called it the Luxurvator. And it was in Cleveland where the audition was taking place. There's a thing called the Terminal Tower. It's the biggest building in the city. And there is an elevator that goes up to the top to their very exquisite restaurant. So I was thinking to myself, you got to have an entertainer like for that elevator ride. That's who I'll be. So I first became the control panel engineer, which was an old character. I played an old man who was a very grumpy, and his only job was to hit the one button to go up to the very top floor. But he made a big deal out of how hard this was. And so he was the first character I did. And then I had a microphone in my back pocket that was attached to nothing. And I introduced the entertainment for the elevator ride, the Luxurvator. And then I pulled the microphone out, spun around, and became this lounge singer. And I sang songs like When We Get Behind Closed Doors. And then I had like about 3 songs that had to do with either being closed in or going from bottom to top. And so I just sang those songs, but I was like a lounge and I was acting as if the elevator was crowded. And then like right in the middle of a song, obviously that we got there. So I had to stop. And then I just got everybody out, and then it came back to the old guy again, and then he was just pushing everybody out, and then we'll see you on the way back down. And so it turned out to be a big hit, and I ended up getting the job. And so that was my first sort of entry into the world of humor and entertainment. I ended up going down to Orlando for 2 years. I worked at MGM Studios hosting this show called Superstar Television, where we put our guests into a live TV show. There was a 3-camera shoot, and at the time it was this really high technology that would allow you to blue screen people into these real shows. And so it was a real fun trip for the customers, or I'm sorry, for the guests. You can't call Disney, they're guests, not customers. but I would push the edge always. I would do things like there were old people that would have the big sunglasses, and so I would introduce them as the welder from one of the other rides as they were building it, and they just got a kick out of it because I would push the edge without ever going over the edge. And at Disney, that's a real commendable skill to have because it gave the show sort of a fun, edgy edge to it, but without ever going across and offending anybody. So that was the line I did. And then I ended up the next year working at Universal Studios, doing about 5 different shows where I had to fill in to host these various shows that would also allow the guests to come in. So I ended up getting a lot of improvisational skills. And during the day, I would do that job, or those 2 different jobs. And then during the night, I would go around Florida and do open micing for a comedy. And so that's where I began my comedy career, was in Florida. And so to get back to the idea of the lens, the comedy lens, I remember where we're at. I ended up taking a comedy class, and we had to understand what your brand is of comedy. And I didn't really understand how important that was, obviously, because my first couple of ideas for that, the first one I was the pale guy from Florida. And that, like, it was cute, and I was trying to be a smart aleck, but really it didn't tell the audience anything that they couldn't just see about me. It didn't really say much about my humor. And then my next one was a tall, bald comic. Again, really a lame attempt at irony. And then what I ended up realizing when I wrote my books, Finding Your Funny Muscle and Fine-Tuning Your Funny Muscle, I was like, one of the most important things for a new comedian to begin to understand about their own attempts at humor is, like, why is your angle different than everyone else's? Otherwise, you end up becoming what I call a generic corner quipper, someone who's funny, but we don't know why they're funny. We can't relate to them. They don't have, their humor doesn't reveal anything personal about their journey and their struggles. So we might laugh, but we don't remember them and we don't stick with them. So in my book, what I really wanted to begin to focus on for new comedians is to begin to discover your comedy lens. And I do that by asking a certain number of questions, like, what are some personal truths about you? So then I began to get those answers from especially the people I coach now, and it begins to reveal what it is about them that they want to launch their humor from. And then by identifying that comedy lens that's more specific to who you are, you begin to be more relatable, more original, and therefore more memorable and more funny. So my lens ended up evolving into, I call myself the clumsy Aspie hole. And so if you know anything about neurodiversity, you know that on the autism spectrum, they used to have something called Asperger's, and they don't really do that anymore. We're outdated. And my joke is, I've never been diagnosed with Asperger's, but I've been accused of it often. And that mostly by my wife, who has been diagnosed as ADHD. And so the thing I say about Asperger's, what we like to do is we like to notice and notify, and we like to interject and correct. And none of it is solicited. It's all unsolicited information that you're giving. And quite often what it ends up being is a little bit annoying, and you come across a little bit gruff. And I say if a normal human has 64 emotional crayons, we got about 5. And the big one is red. It's a lot of anger and a lot of jealousy and a lot of frustration. And the humor comes from, for me, is I'm clumsy. I end up setting the bar really high for the world, but I can't reach it myself. So I end up constantly, it backfires on me. And the joke is I can't measure up the way I expect the world to. And so a lot of my humor, when I realized when I went back and I backtracked to some of my original humor that I got on TV and the things that were most successful in my stage show, all of those had that element of the clumsy Aspie hole. It's like, for instance, in the book, Jim Bob, you probably know that the bit I talk about, the bed seduction. That's a bit I did on the Tonight Show. And the idea was that my bed seduces me back into it because I'm trying to get up and start my day, but my bed is so tempting that I can't help it. So then the joke is a conversation back and forth between me and my bed, and to where the finally climaxes with me snoring and snoozing and being back in bed. But truly, it was just the clumsy Aspie hole who was too hungover to get up and face his day, making excuses why it's not my fault. Hey, I wanted to be there at the radio station, but my bed's a whore. But so that ended up being my comedy lens. And now when I write humor and I create humor, I have that idea in mind. So a lot of the things I create now are visual for my website, funnymuscle.com. And I have a series of clumsy aspie hole videos where it's me, it's like a back and forth between me and another character. And it's typically me just describing a normal, like I went to the grocery store. It was great. I walked to I parked my car. I talked to the security guard, and then you cut each time you're cutting back to, oh my God, the clerk is this guy's amazing. Like he almost ran over these old people who were trying to park up front. I think they might be dead. And he was yelling at the security guard going, where's my spot? Where's my, and so what the philosophy behind that is things don't always go the way that we think they go. As an aspie hole, sometimes the world interprets it a little bit differently. So I have another one where I'm trying to make a call to my pharmacy, and another one where I'm trying to drive to my doctor and I almost kill there's a bike messenger. And so anyway, so that in a nutshell is my comedy lens, why I created it. And then with the clients that I coach, that's the first thing that I help them to understand, to help them differentiate their humor from everyone else's.
I really like that. I really like that concept because, sometimes you talk about a comic persona. Okay, so Foster Brooks was the slurring drunk or whatnot, but he really wasn't a drunk in real life. The persona is funny, but it's not. Having a lens as an alcoholic would give a totally different light and add so much more depth, realism, and relatability to it.
Yeah, Foster Brooks is old school, right? So he's like a lot of, and back then they were basically exchanging jokes and adding their own touch to them. And nowadays, if you're doing comedy now, you can't do that. You have to really have an original take, and like ever since Lenny Bruce, like observational comedy just began to become incredibly important because we realized that comedy can be more than just like the recitation of jokes. It can also be a revelation of who you are. Yeah. And one of the things that I really believe in is that comedy is transformation. And Viola Spolin, she's the godmother of improvisation. What was her quote? She says, the heart of improvisation is transformation. And that's what I really believe that comedy does is, and I'm sure since you guys both, your whole life revolves around this organization about bringing humor to people, then you understand what I mean, which is comedy, what comedy directly combats is struggle. We struggle in life. Life is difficult. Life is difficult for all of us in different ways. And when you can transform a struggle into a laugh, that's a gift. That's a real thing to do for people, because most people who are too busy to laugh at their struggles. But when you as a comedian can say, oh, I struggle with traffic. I struggle raising my kids. I struggle just trying to make a living. And then you get more specific with your lens and show them how that happens. It transforms from that into and that's a relief. And that dopamine of relief is a gift. And I feel like that's what people like us do for the world.
I think we should make some bumper stickers out of that last sentence.
Yeah.
There's
right?
Yeah.
A lot of gems of truth in there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, comedy is such a beautiful thing. It really, it seems so simple, and like we throw it away as if it's a useless thing, or as if it's an invaluable part of our world. And like it wouldn't even be the frosting on the cake; it would be the sprinkles. And really, it's the cake and the sprinkles and the frosting together. And because it changes people, and it changes your day, it changes your attitude. And when you can change and uplift, that is, you get that back in 100-fold. And it really, it's amazing that when I go out in public still and make people laugh just in the elevator or standing in line waiting to get something, it's really fantastic, because it's a really shock to these people. It doesn't happen to them a lot, and it happens to me every day, so it doesn't surprise me. But I can see the transformation in their, I guess, their energy. Like they go from being focused on what's not good, and then they laugh about the fact that it's a silly thing that we're sharing. And then they walk away a different person. They walk away a little lighter. And I think that to me is so valuable.
I took a stand-up class, and when I debuted, I was told to tell what my lens was. And I don't look like it anymore right now. But I was a cross between Wonder Woman and Strawberry Shortcake.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Wonder Woman and Strawberry Shortcake. Yeah, those are, it's funny because they're both made up things, but we know exactly what those entail. Because a Wonder Woman, I think of a Wonder Woman as somebody who's a superhero who has, the fun joke is the invisible plane. So that's funny. And then Strawberry Shortcake I like because I have a daughter. I have a 14-year-old daughter. And anytime there's anything that has that element of light fun for girls, And I guess for boys too, like nowadays, I've learned with having a son as well, that you cannot pigeonhole anyone.
Mm-mm.
Like strawberry shortcake is equally for boys too,
Yeah.
but it brings a lightness to the world and a color, like the color palette. I like the color palette.
Yeah, my hair, I had pink dreadlocks.
Oh, that's great. What's it like to have hair? Just tell me that for a little bit.
Oh, it's
Go into,
lots of, I've been bald too, by the way.
have you
And
shaved your head before?
I have, yeah. I worked with a German troupe and we did African dance and Butoh, Japanese dance on stilts. And so
I,
we all had to be bald for that. And
I
I
think everyone
enjoyed
should
it. I
shave it.
kept it for a while.
Yeah, it doesn't it something? Doesn't it change? Just I was losing my hair. I was getting male pattern baldness, and so I have that thing where it looks like an epiglottis. I always say that my hair was retreating backwards, like slowly, and I retreat. The follicles are no good up front no more. Born and raised in the front of the forehead. That's where we're live and die. This little circle. And I had a wig for a week. I had a hairpiece literally for 1 week. I went to the hair club for men in Chicago, and I couldn't live with a fake hairpiece on. It felt like I was like lying to everyone. And the moment I knew that this could not be was when I hooked up with a woman after one of my shows, and we were making out, and she kept trying to run her hands through my hair, and I was pushing it down like a teen, like not wanting to be felt up. And I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. That same weekend, I was driving to a gig with another guy, Jimmy Wiggins. I don't know if you remember Jimmy Wiggins, but he was the last hippie in America was his moniker. And he was fantastic, but he couldn't drive. So if you're working with Jimmy, you're driving. So I'm driving with I had the Mel Gibson hair. That's how cocky I got about my fake hairpiece. I didn't even just I had like a big Lethal Weapon 5 hair. It was wonderful. It was a good job. And so then when we got to the gig, Jimmy, the whole time we're talking, and if Jimmy, son, and I call you son because who knows? That's his kind of humor. And so we get to the gig, and I rushed to my room. I knew I was going to shave it off, but I only had a tiny, like little, like a ear or a sideburn trimmer. So I had to shave off because I don't know if you know much about wig work, but in terms of hair pieces, but they have clips that go into your real hair and they glue
Yes.
it around. So you have to unclip, rip off the thing, and then all the hair, the half Mel Gibson I was sporting after that was gone, I had to shave it off with this little clipper. But the show was like in an hour, so I managed to get like most of it off, but then I had a baseball cap on. And then so when I walked through the hallway with my bald head with the little kind of like a rat tail in the back that was still needed to be trimmed, I passed by Jimmy Wiggins in the hallway, and he was like, "Good evening, sir," and walked right past me. Didn't even recognize me. So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be fun." So then I did the show. But then just to put a button on that story, I still had $1,200 I owed on this wig at the hair club. So I'm a comic. I don't have $1,200. So I'm like, I'm getting out of this one. So I go to the hair club for men that Monday. I have my hair in a pile in my thing with my shaved head. I walk into the waiting room where there's a half a dozen other guys who are waiting to get this procedure. So they whisked me right past all of them. I was like, my God, what happened? So I made up this story about how someone in the audience had understood that I was wearing a wig and made fun of me and called attention to it and embarrassed me and humiliated me in front of my crowd. And I can't have this. And so I threw the thing down on the desk and I said, I refuse to pay for the balance of this. And then she was like, so she pulls out a Ziploc bag and picks it up, puts the thing in the Ziploc bag and closes it up. And she says, we'll keep this on file in case you decide to change your mind. I will never change my mind. And from that point, I was bald.
And I can imagine there's a filing cabinet in Chicago somewhere that's got this bulge.
That's what I was picturing. L, here we go. All right, here's your little raccoon. Oh, it was so funny. I think I was 25 at the time, 20, something like that.
Who knows? Maybe Mel Gibson wants that back now.
That's true. That's true. I could sell that to him. He's starting to go a little thin too, so it's the same color.
Oh, that's amazing.
And just for our legal department, all these events occurred more than 7 years ago, so we're way past the statute of limitations.
I don't lie anymore, but to get out of paying money that I owe, just so you know. That was a young man's move. It's funny. Yeah, it was so funny because the look on everyone else in that waiting room's face was just like, oh, wait, what? Someone very wrong here. But then the rest of the time, like I've had this shaved head and I've really enjoyed it. It's been really wonderful to do wig work with because now I have a series of wigs And B, I'm someone who's clowned. Like wigs are an amazing way to transform your look. And I typically now, on these podcasts, I guess on a podcast, my first inclination is always to show up with a wig and then to whip it off just to shock everybody. But I came to realize that it's not like on TV where you walk out and you're on. There's always this 5 or 10 minute period beforehand. And I began to realize that it's a very awkward moment to have that and to put people through that. But
Yeah, you don't have the element of surprise quite as
right.
easily.
And with wig work, you got to have that. But
Yeah.
what I love about wigs is it really transforms your whole, it's like a mask. It transforms your personality. And what I begin to do, I realize is that you can wear wigs differently. Like you can wear them backwards and it looks like now all of a sudden you've got these weird bangs that kind of are in the front. You can wear them, you can puff it up and now you can look different. So you can wet it down and look nerdy. And so one wig goes a long way for me.
Yeah, and when you're me, one big long bunch of hair also can be morphed
Right.
into many things.
I'm jealous of your dreadlocks. I'd like my son is accidentally getting some dreadlocks just simply from refusing to brush his hair. There's dreadlocks by choice and it's dreadlocks by proxy.
Yeah.
It's funny when people do any kind of a hair restoration thing, what they're not counting on is time. Because even what I realized with the Hair Club for Men wig that I was wearing is that it would require monthly maintenance. So I'd have to, because your hair grows and then the combs slip and then everything starts getting shaky. And then it looks different on your head than it did in the store. So you have to, there's like a maintenance and that costs money. And then I was like, oh my God, this is like having a Rolls Royce. I can't afford this.
Okay, so I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, you retired from stand-up in 2014.
Yeah.
What you been doing for 10 years?
Nothing. Absolutely. I'm not going to be funny anymore. No, what ended up happening was I ended up having kids. And as Steve Martin says, comedy is a young man's game because to do the work I was doing, you had to travel. Yeah. And what I found was that as you have children and you leave them, they forget that you're even in their life. I would come back after 2 or 3 weeks of work and I'd be like, hey, it's me, Dad. And my kids are like, remind me? Oh, I'm the guy that was here. Yeah, I build things, not really, but I like to think I do. And so I very quickly, when I saw that look in my daughter's eye when I was first a parent, I realized, oh, this isn't going to work anymore. Because to do comedy, you have to really enjoy all of it. You have to enjoy traveling. You have to enjoy showing up to a new club every week. You have to enjoy meeting a new crowd of people every night and embracing them and connecting with them and afterwards. And then you have to meet a new crew of club workers every week. And that took a lot of energy to be away and do that. And when you don't have anything to return to, it's easy because that's your world and your world shifts every week to a new place. And it was wonderful as a young man. And then when I had a wife, it got a little bit more challenging, but she was also a professional entertainer. She did radio back in LA. And so then it was okay because we were away and we were back and we were two adults and it was fine. Yeah. The second I had my baby girl, I was like, oh, everything just changed. And so I was like, I tried to make it work for a little while. And then I was like, I'm going to miss the best parts of this experience if I continue doing this. So I said, what's another way to use my humor in order to make a living? And I was like, I could write. I can begin to learn how to write because I've always been a writer, but I would write jokes. But a long time ago, I started writing like short stories and I realized I really enjoy writing. And so I began to just every day, and I began to train myself with classes and I did what I call the million word challenge. I challenged myself to write 1 million words before I ever tried to make a living doing it. So every day I would do about 2,000, 2,500 words of just blah. And eventually I began to realize here's how to do this. And so I started getting work as a SEO content writer. There's a lot of marketing involved with that. I did a stint with a company called Copy Chief. I did a stint as a NFL gambling writer. When it became legal to gamble on the NFL, I started writing articles based on that. It was all a lot of content to bring traffic into these different worlds. And so that's the professional money-making way of writing that I adapted. And then I started writing this book, Finding Your Funny Muscle, back when I was at Second City in Vegas, when I was doing shows there. And I couldn't figure out how I wanted to write the book. So I put it on the back burner. And then I started coaching some new comedians. And through that and a couple of other things, I just got a breakthrough. I go, oh, here's how this book goes. And then I hammered it out like in 3 months. I was just like, boom, and it was done. And then I came up with Fine Tuning Your Funny Muscle, which is, I say, if being funny was driving, book 1 teaches you what a car is. Book 2 teaches you how to cruise around town. And then I have book 3 coming up, which is Flexing Your Funny Muscle. And book 3 is basically tells you when and when not to drive. Sometimes it's best to get the heck out of the car because no one's in the mood to laugh. And it also teaches you how to deal with hecklers and haters. Also teaches you how to develop a style as opposed to, because like your comedy lens tells you what angle you're taking. Your style tells you how you're going to deliver that comedy. And you have to be very clear on both of those. And both of those have to be very authentic to who you are and how your humor works so that you can begin to be, I guess, more realistic on stage as opposed to the corner quipper. So now what I do is I write these books and then I also coach. I'm a comedy coach. So I do one-on-one Zoom coaching I have a bunch of clients. And so that's how I'm making my living. So it's been a long journey though, Jim Bob. That in answer to your question, it was very scary. And now I'm actually want to get back on stage and start. My kids are old enough now. They're 14 and 11. So they're old enough now where I realize that they don't want me as much. Maybe go away for a week. That might be nice just to get you out of our hair. So now it's become, I almost have permission to get back on stage again. So now I'm busy trying to work up my act again and update it and get some newer, with my new lens, some newer material. Max Score is my pseudonym. Those are the short stories I do. These are deliciously twisted short stories. And they're not necessarily for humor, but the Max Score is the pseudonym I use to obviously it's maximum gore. So they're a lot more, they're twisted. Like for instance, one of them is about a zookeeper who ends up they get busted for having an affair with one of the animals, with a crocodile. So there's like like, you're not sure
No
exactly.
crocodiles were harmed in the writing of this.
No, not
Yeah.
at all. As you can tell, I'm more, I act out things. I do a lot of character voices. I do a lot of different perspectives and stuff. And I couldn't ever figure out how to take the premise, setup, punchline format and make it work for me.
Yeah.
So I've upgraded it to have the comedy lens included in that, and also Peter McGraw's concepts on benign violation, which is you set something up and then you benignly violate that idea, that normalcy that you get the audience to expect in a way that surprises them but still satisfies that setup. And then the way I teach people to do that is through using these 36 humor heightening devices. And these are what professionals always use anyways. And I began to assemble this list from like back when I was a comedian, back with, I don't know if Kostaki Economopoulos. He goes by he says, I'm the biggest name in show business because he's a guy out of Indianapolis. And he came up with the first list of like maybe 10 or 12 of these things. And so he let me use that. And then I began to build on that. And these are things like I'll give you a couple of examples, like anthropomorphizing. I love to turn inanimate objects, give them a voice and give them a personality. For instance, my bed, trying to seduce me back into it. Oh, Michael, I want you in me. Not right now. Or my alarm clock. Get your butt out of bed. You got to go to work and you hate your job. So now things in my life have a personality and a voice, and I can have conversations back and forth with them. So that's a heightening device that comics will use in order to yes and a punchline that they've already done. Other things are like comics will use obviously exaggeration and irony and things like that. Things like different perspective. I love different perspectives. If I'm going to do a bit about traffic, it's fun, of course, to have my perspective, like I'm frustrated to be stuck in traffic. So that's my perspective. But a different perspective might be, what about the kids in the back seat of the guy whose car stalled? What's their perspective? What about the perspective of the guy who's waiting to cross the street, but I'm nervously back and forth, not sure whose turn is it, kind of thing. So a different perspective is great because now all of a sudden you get the other side of the story. And a lot of humor comes from that because we're all so tied up in what we think. It's sometimes funny and literally empathetic to figure out how other people think. So there's all sorts of like negative to positive. That's a heightening device. It's fun to use. So I just did a whole article about why I love to be sick. because I just got over a sickness. And so I was doing things like free mucus. I got access to Mother Nature's bubble gum. And so it takes a negative and turns it into a positive, and it becomes funny because we wouldn't think that would be a positive at all, but through this heightening, you do that. So there's 36 of those that I help people understand how to use. And then when you begin to practice those and flex that muscle, as I say, then you get better at them, and they begin to occur to you organically as opposed to having to go through it as an exercise.
So Jim Bob, you've read both of his books?
Yeah. I'm one and in the process of reading the second.
Okay. If you were to ask Mike Lukas anything, based on what you've read, that is like the hanging question in your mind, what might that be?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many here. The first thing is, I knew you had to have some type of a tech background, because only a tech person is going to systematize
Exactly
the creative process. Okay.
Right.
And
Yeah. I have it's funny because a management information system was my major, and what MIS is it's like the guy that's in between the tech people and the users. And I have to understand both worlds enough to be able to explain it either way. I have to tell the people who are using the system how to use it, and I have to tell the tech people what the uses are of it, but use their vernacular. So yeah, that's funny, Jim Bob. That's exactly, because you're an engineer. You recognize another linear mind when you smell it.
And have you met Andrew Tarvin yet?
I have not, no.
You have to. Okay. Andrew Tarvin he was an engineer, went to the Ohio State University, worked for Procter and Gamble, found that humor made him more effective at work. And he has a TEDx talk on use of humor, which has over 9 million hits. It's amazing. Okay. Humorthatworks.com, one of my comedy heroes. The only thing that I resent about Andrew is that I should have had that idea when I was an engineer.
Right.
And yeah.
So that's how you know it's a good idea. It's because you were like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Of course. Yeah. And in our society, we really prioritize maximizing profits over joy. And I think that shift is beginning to, we're realizing that the profits aren't bringing us happiness. And when you see these rich people who are offing themselves, or rich people that are angry and that are grabby, and their lives aren't enviable. And my kids are looking at those people and like, oh, I don't want to be like that. I want, there's a better way. And then there's so much more education and so much more emphasis on what we're talking about, that I feel very hopeful that it's beginning to head in that direction. But it's through people like you and us that we're trying to really re-establish new priorities in this society and joy.
Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes, Lee Harris Energy, is the Instagram account that said, "Heart is the new currency." Heart is the new currency.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And I've seen that affect people in Africa as I'm on some of these Zoom meetings and stuff. And it's powerful. And it's what I feel like we need right now. And it's not going to be instantaneous because it's an evolution. And you, Mike Lukas, you're doing the same with your Nichiren Buddhism.
Yeah, I really feel like that's true. It's a slow roll, but when you are trying to retrain an entire society, it's not going to be fast, and it's okay. It's okay because it's baby steps, but it's wild. That's what I love about the algorithm is we tap into any of these social media places and start to be interested in this type of thing. All of a sudden, everyone else that's interested in this starts to pop up, and I was like, whoa, I didn't realize how many other people are into cause and effect, into joy, into like anti-profiteering and pro laughter. And it just like you suddenly see, and a lot of these are younger faces. They're kids from Australia and kids that are just in their 20s, and they're talking as if they have this wisdom, and I'm impressed by it, and I'm excited, and I'm very hopeful by it.
Yeah, and that's going to be your kids soon. Amazing.
Yeah, and their kids hopefully. And yeah, it's pretty wild how my kids don't have a bone of racism in their body. They don't have a bone of judgmentalness, judgment. And they're just so different than I am. And it was raised like there was a real poo to anything that didn't make money. And now we realize that money's important to survive, but it's not important to thrive in terms of emotionally.
A couple of questions here that we need to ask.
Sure.
Mike, if someone is looking for you or looking for your services, where should they go?
It's easy. You go to mike@funnymuscle.com. That's my email address that is open to everybody. I even, in the books, I open up to anyone who needs help with their comedy lens. And that's how I've gotten a lot of my clients, is I open that up and I help them for free, because I'm a comedy geek and I just love to help people get closer to their comedy goals. And then I end up working with them one-on-one because they enjoyed the head start that I got them with. My website, funnymuscle.com, is a perfect resource to find anything about me. And it tells you about my history, about my comedy, about my books that I've done and are doing. And if you need to get a hold of me, that's the best way to do it, funnymuscle.com. And it was funny in the beginning. It's so funny how people resist anything that's new or different, because everyone was like, it's funny bone, not funny muscle. Why would you do that? That's confusing. And I don't get it. I don't get it. And I was like, if you think about it, funny isn't like a bone. A bone is rigid and breaks, and it's hard and resists. And I said, funny is a muscle, man. Funny, like it moves around and it contracts and expands, and as you work it, it grows bigger. So like it makes perfect sense that it's a funny muscle. And so at least that's what I tell them to shut them up.
Jim Bob's going to have a question in a second that he asks every time.
Right.
And is there anything we missed, Mike, Lukas, asking you about?
I don't think so. I really like this conversation. I like, but my favorite thing is with the combining of worlds. I think part of what makes things funny is when you can bring unlikely worlds together. And one of the examples I use in the books is the frog bank. It's like a frog's not really that funny and a bank's not that funny. But when you combine frog bank, now all of a sudden your mind starts working into funny things, like a bunch of frogs standing in line with instead of money, they've got worms and they've got flies. And now you can begin to yes and that idea of that combining of worlds. And our conversation I love that it's a combination of comedy and humor, but also life and joy, and the idea of yes-anding and heightening the joy in this world. And so to me, if I could emphasize what's important in my world, it's the idea of yes-anding. It's the idea of listening on all levels, not just to what someone's saying, but why they're saying it and how they're saying it and when they're saying it in what context. And then to be okay with whatever they're saying, to not fight it. What we tend to do as new comedians is we like, yeah, but, or wouldn't this be better? Because I have an idea. And in improv, what we're taught is to yes and something. So you listen to what they're saying, you accept it as true, and then you add to it, you heighten it, you make it bigger and better. And that to me is the key to life, because we're not listening to each other. We're really just trying to force our voice into the world. And when you can begin to heighten and yes and other people's ideas, it's synergy. We're creating 1 + 1 is 3, man. So let's begin to think that way.
Amazing.
So I have a question. We're the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. I guess the biggest part of it is, how do you apply it? How do you use it? So my question for you, how would you tell your son or daughter, or actually anybody in the universe, how should they use humor on Thursday, any given Thursday?
I would say that first of all, you have to be aware of the fact that you can be funny, that humor is a possibility. What we tend to do is we're so busy that we forget that there's time for laughter. So I would always say to anyone that begin to make more time for humor, because humor can be easily skipped over. If you're in the middle of a traffic jam, it's very easy to just be frustrated. But when you have the gift of humor, you can begin to see from other perspectives and other angles of a frustrating situation, and then suddenly it becomes funny. And funny is the release of tension. And to me, as somebody who gets migraines, as somebody who's socially anxious, and as are my kids, and as are a lot of people nowadays, humor breaks that apart. And I think the key, truly, Jim Bob, is being a better listener. We have to really begin to focus on listening, and listening is a lot more complicated than we might make it, but then it's much more simple than we might make it. It's complicated because we think that listening means I heard the words you said and I'm going to respond to those. And that seems pretty simple, but it's complicated because what you say has context to it. What you say depends on who you are saying it. Because the things that you might utter at a line at Walmart might, the words themselves might have a different meaning because of who you are saying them. Whether you're a guy who's got too many bags that is getting frustrated, or if you're a guy who's got no bags and feels like insecure about your lack of purchases. There's ways that we can begin to look and listen to everyone else. And I think that was like, if I was going to tell anyone on any given Thursday, begin to really put yourself in other people's shoes and begin to see things from that point of view, and especially your own BS. When I begin to look at myself in my own clumsy aspie wholeness from others' perspective, it becomes funny to me because I'm like, wow, what's it like to have me in your world? That's got to be rough. Interjecting and correcting constantly. Oh, actually, to be honest, and like that's to me what's key is being a better listener. Because I know that when I was beginning my improv classes, that was the one thing I really needed to work on. Was I was like, oh, I thought listening was the amount of time you have to wait till you get to speak again. That's not what it is. It's about hearing the other person's heart and soul and where they're coming from and responding to that emotion as opposed to those words.
Excellent advice. All right. Okay. And of course, we all know what the most important thing about comedy is.
Yeah, buy a funny hat. You gotta get a funny hat. No. What is the most important thing? Oh yeah, no, you got it.
Wait, I'm ready. Hold on.
You have a hat right there. Yes. Oh man, I need to have like a.
I got you guys off guard. Nice.
If it didn't still have my medication in it, I would lick it and make it stick on my phone. Always have toilet paper. Toilet paper is what you need. Actually,
Toilet paper. Yes, it is. Especially during COVID.
Right. Okay. What is the key, Jim Bob? I want to know. I need the answer.
Timing.
I was hoping that was going to be what you did.
I'm sorry, it's not an original joke, but I just love using it.
I love it. That's like an old Steve Martin. Timing. It's timing.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, timing is perfect.
Yes. And you have a book coming out when?
I have 3 books that are out. I have Finding Your Funny Muscle and Fine Tuning Your Funny Muscle are already out, and those are available. And I have the ebook, paperback, and audio version of the first book, and the second one is about to have the audio version released. I also have the third book is going to be released hopefully by the end of this year, Flexing Your Funny Muscle, in all those same avenues: Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Google Books, and all that stuff. And then I have another book available. It's called Max Score Presents Frog Belly Beans, 14 Deliciously Twisted Short Stories. And I love this book. These are stories that they're just weird and they're fun. I started writing these when I was in Chicago back in the 90s. And I finally, I hired an editor and I got them to where I'm really happy with them. And it's a fun little book, and I would recommend that one as well. So all those are available in bookstores.
All right. Excellent. By the way,
you need joy because you're on Earth, because we have it's such a bizarre journey.
Yeah.
Here's a little life.
Yeah. So the card says you deserve joy just because you're on Earth. And Mike Lukas wants to change this to you need joy just because you're on Earth. And I agree with you right there.
Yeah, I think both are true. I think we need it, but we also deserve it. And that's hard to allow yourself to deserve something, especially something like that, because a lot of people, it just doesn't occur to them to be funny. And but I've also realized that there's so many people are a lot funnier than you realize if you take the time to have that moment like Katie B does. Yeah. You have to stop and you have to have the gut. It takes courage to be funny. It really does. It's very scary because the idea of trying to be funny and then failing is a very scary thought. And some people would rather just not be funny to avoid the risk of it not going well. And as far as I'm concerned, so what does Norm Macdonald say? Being funny is when you try to do something and it doesn't work is often funny. So the mere nature of trying to be funny and it not working is funny in itself. So relax. It's going to be funny either way.
All right. So you're going to read this. This is people's homework. And then, of course, their homework really this podcast is to look for you.
Please
But, oh no, I dropped it. Oh, here you go.
spread some joy.
And compliment the stranger today.
Isn't that great? Compliment the stranger. And it's funny how easy that is, and how we think that to compliment a stranger is difficult, but hairstyle, outfit, energy. Just going up to someone and go, you have the best energy. Boy, I walked around you and I just wanted to smile. Just saying something like that makes someone go, oh, what? Well, you know.
It's true. It's so true. You're right.
Hilarious.
Your eyes are so blue. Something they have no control over. They didn't choose it. They didn't decide to dress that way.
Yeah.
Your eyes. And they go, huh?
Whoa.
No.
They can't believe they've been noticed. Funny.
Yeah. All right, Mike, what are your last words?
My last words is thank you for this conversation. It was very valuable to me. And thank you to anyone who's curious. Oh my God. I looks like I'm making a literal heart, like a square that's like a piece of meat that pumps blood.
I love it. And it goes bunk, 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 bunk.
But I guess, my final words would be to seek laughter. It really is healing. And like you were saying, the reciprocal nature of it, it feels good to make people laugh, and it feels good to laugh. So it's a free dopamine.
Yeah.
So take advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been Laughbox, the official podcast of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. We'd like to thank our guest, Mike Lukas, comedian, author, amazing person. You've got to go to funnymuscle.com and learn all you can about him. You'll be glad you did. All right. And so on behalf of AATH, I'm Jim Bob Williams.
And I'm Katie B.
Good night and keep laughing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was wonderful. That was fun.
That was a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, very fabulous. Thank you for joining us for episode 120 with Jim Bob Williams, Katie B, and the amazing Mike Lukas. Thank you very much.
Laughbox is a production of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Visit us online at www.aath.org. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Music by Gary Rubio. For more information, www.garyrubiomusic.com.
This has been Laughbox, brought to you by the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.